Talked about at the very top of our show, we talked about Jeb Bush and his interview over the weekend and the decision to release the emails. You know the governor, former governor, really well. Just give us a sense of where he is now in terms of taking the plunge or not.
So honestly, I don't want to get into specifics. My impression is he's testing the water. That's like a fair assessment. I think the email, the proposal to dump, or the commitment to dump the email is fantastic for him. It's created a lot of buzz, like in the donor community, because it speaks to his authenticity. You know, I mean, one of the things he's got going for him, whether people like him or not, is he's a real guy. He's extremely accessible. Everybody I know has Jeb Bush's email address, right? I can't tell you how many people I speak to who say, hey, I just got an email from Jeb, or I just emailed Jeb. He's very available to people, very transparent. This email thing is sort of consistent with that, and it puts the focus on his 8 years as governor. Enough of these ridiculous stories about private equity, enough of the stories about how he's going to handle his brother, you know, if he's running. It's about his 8 years as a conservative governor.
So you've seen him over the years with donors, particularly in New York, but in other places as well. And you just mentioned that donors like the disclosure of the emails. How would he do, if he got in this race in January or February, how would he do with the big donors? Would he be first among equals? Would he box out Chris Christie to some extent?
You know, I think that the 800-pound gorillas in the donor community are going to be Christie and Jeb. That's not a surprise. I think there is this first mover advantage here, where there's a lot of people who have a lot of history with Jeb. They've known him for a long time. And, you know, him striking early is going to at least freeze them out. So I'm not sure he's going to start recruiting them intensely, but I think a lot of people who are thinking they had to make a decision early are now going to wait and see a little bit.
But if they both got in, could Christie keep pace with Jeb?
Yes. Yes, I think Christie's, I mean, honestly, I think he's a formidable fundraiser. He also has tremendous relationships with the donor community, specifically around here. And as you guys know, he spent the last couple of years running around the country raising a boatload of money for the RGA. He's got deep relationships.
The thing that a lot of people have said they thought would hold Jeb back, if anything held him back, was his family and whether he could get his wife and kids on board. Do you sense that that is now a done deal, that they are ready for him to go?
Look, I don't think he would be taking the steps that he's taking, honestly, just watching this from a distance, objectively. I don't think he'd be taking the steps that he was taking if his family was not on board. I have no idea if they're on board, but would he do this if his family wasn't on board? And I think, look, my sense is he's probably made the decision to run. At a minimum, he's testing the water, and he's filling this vacuum. There was this ridiculous vacuum over the last few months. Is Jeb running? Is he not running? Is his family on board, or are they not on board? It was the ridiculous process stories that were not helpful to him. Suddenly, there's a discussion about transparency. Isn't that interesting? He's going to look at that transparency compared to Hillary Clinton's lack of transparency. And there'll be a real discussion about what he did as governor. One of the raps against him, as you guys know, is he won't make it in a Republican primary. Not conservative enough, Common Core, immigration. People forget his 8 years as governor. Very reform-minded conservative governor. Suddenly we're going to spend a lot of time when those emails come out talking about him as governor and whether or not he was a conservative.
All right, so here's what I don't get. You know, since the thing, Josh Green's story last week about his business deals, I've heard from tons of Jeb people saying, this is ridiculous, it's not the same as Romney. You know, a lot of Republicans, we said this last week on the show, a lot of Republicans don't think that Mitt Romney had a Mitt Romney problem. How can you...
There's a difference. There's a difference. And by the way,
there were no mysterious...
I'm a big Mitt Romney fan. I wish you were president right now, but let me be clear about something.
There were no mysterious Chinese donors.
They're not exactly the same. And Jeb's right, Mitt Romney made a lot more money. But the point is...
But that's not the difference. The difference is...
He's got offshore ties.
Mysterious Chinese donors.
Foreign donors avoiding paying taxes in America.
So
that's a
Mitt
problem.
Romney, I think rightly so, because he deserved it. Mitt Romney made part of the rationale for his candidacy his private equity career. Right. He said, I'm a job creator. I was an investor and I created jobs. And the Obama campaign said, all right, you want to say your private equity career makes you a job creator? Let's look how many jobs you actually created. He opened it up. Jeb is not running on his private equity career. He's running as having been one of the most successful conservative governors in the country. He happens to have ties to the financial industry. So does Hillary Clinton. So does Governor Christie.
I got to say, that's kind of an on-point answer.
So does Ted Cruz, by the way.
At all.
That's like just about everyone running for president on the Democrat or Republican side has ties to the financial community.
It's rather shocking. It always troubles me when Dan answers a question really right on point like that. Here's my question. You just brought up you were talking about the two guys. One of the presumptions people have had recently has been that Mitt Romney would not run if Jeb Bush ran. Because he and his wife have both said positive things about Jeb in the past. But more recently, you're starting to hear a little bit of a shading on that. So what's your sense of what Romney's view is of the Bush question, in, out, and what it means for him?
So you guys get, I obviously can't start, like, getting into the specifics.
Well, you could.
Yeah, but I know,
Yeah,
but I'm not going to.
Speak softly.
But my general sense of it is that the theory about Romney possibly getting in is if we had a crack-up in the Republican primary, a real crack-up. The field blew up. There was no consensus candidate that can unite the party. And that was, by the way, a real possibility because the sort of hard-right candidates, Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, were clearly running, and the mainstream candidates either had obstacles or were hedging. I think these moves that Jeb makes and others are going to start making are going to start sort of turning that upside down. They're going to start actually stop the hedging, jump right in, and I think that theory about a sort of crack-up in the party begins to become more remote.
We don't have a lot of time left. You're a foreign policy guy to some extent. What is Jeb's foreign policy like? What defines Jeb Bush's foreign policy?
I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. I know he's read and he's cited a fantastic book by Robert Kagan, which is about America's role in the world and the importance of America sticking by its allies, America having a strong national defense, America standing by opposition movements around the. We can look. He has cited Bob Kagan himself. I know he's read the book. He had it on his iPad. Other than that, I can't speak.
Okay, we got 30 seconds.
He's traveled all over the world.
We got 30 seconds. I'm going to do two really quick questions. One. We know Jeb Bush is not afraid of Chris Christie, right? Not at all. Is Chris Christie at all intimidated by Jeb Bush? Quickly.
I honestly have no idea, but I would think that they exist in the same lane, in the same bracket in the Republican primary. You know, mainstream center-right candidates. Christie was the most competitive, biggest player in that lane. Jeb is possibly entering it, so it's definitely a challenge. I don't know about that.
Literally, yes or no, Paul Ryan might run. Yes or no?
Might run. Yes.
Okay.
He didn't exactly make news here.
Dan Señorita.